And we start our first meeting by welcoming the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Parish Development. Once again, a very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. And on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I you to today's press briefing, where the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury will be sharing with you on the releases for Q2, but also issues of the economy and policy issues affecting the executive. Once again, I welcome you. My name is Apollo Mininda. I'm your Principal Communication Officer at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. I just jumped the Acting Director Budget, Ms. Hanington Ashala, to give us the welcome remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Apollo PSST. PSST, we are having a press release today for the second quarter expenditure limits. As the Minister of Finance, particularly allow me to recognize Acting Director Treasury Services, Mr. Stephen Ojambo, John Mihiroha, the Commissioner for BPED, Oktoi, Commissioner Debt Policy, Biamkama Godfrey, Acting Commissioner EDPR, Angela Wabtomize, Acting Commissioner Macro, Assistant Commissioner Macro is Acting Commissioner now, John Biarhanga, Acting Commissioner Tax Policy, Henry Sebukera, the Technical Advisor Budget, James Tebenkana, Assistant Commissioner Planning, Ali Tagore, Assistant Commissioner Budget Policy, and Bob Munene, Assistant Commissioner Financial Services, among others. Mr. PSST, I welcome you to this press release for Q2 expenditure releases for financial year 25-26. And this is part of our overall budget transparency initiatives, where this ministry holds press briefings on a quarterly basis after we have communicated the expenditure limits to the accounting officers. And the objectives of this press brief are twofold. One, to inform the public of the funds released for the quarter, and in this case Q2 of financial year 25-26. Briefly highlight the state of the economy and other policy guidelines aimed at ensuring effective budget execution, but also service delivery, which is the ultimate goal of why we release these resources. The second objective is provide information to relevant stakeholders to facilitate monitoring, but also demand accountability from implementing agencies. Already, in the circular dated 10th October 2015, this was on Friday last week, you signed a communication for Q2 expenditure releases to all accounting officers. Accordingly, this press briefing is intended to now communicate to the public these releases. And I wish to extend my sincere appreciation once again to our budget transparency partners. I've already mentioned some of them, for their unwavering support in our budget work. They are always with us, as you know, Mr. PSST. But also for their consistent participation in our key engagements as the ministry, but also the rest of government in relation to the budget. These partners, let me repeat them, mainly include the civil society, but particularly I single out CS-BAG, Accord, Uganda Debt Network, and Siatini. They are our partners always. But also we thank the media who disseminate most of the information, and now we work closely with them, and we are beginning to see the accuracy of reporting, especially on the budget numbers. As already noted, at the beginning of the financial year, we issue what we call a BEC. BEC in full is Budget Execution Circular to all accounting officers, guiding on the execution of the budget. But more importantly, we guide them to always cascade these budget transparency initiatives at all levels, including the MDAs, but also the local government levels. I therefore wish to invite you, Acting PSST, to deliver 25-26 communicating Q2 expenditure.
The one holding the portfolio for Directorate of Budget, for your introductory remarks. Patrick Ochaila is my name, Deputy Secretary Treasury. I shall be delivering this on behalf of Permanent Secretary Treasury, who has traveled for official duties out of the country. Distinguished members of the Budget Transparency Group and the great members of the press, I welcome you to this press briefing. In this press briefing and all stakeholders, I will cover the following. 1, brief the country on the state of the economy. 2, communicate to the country the release of funds to the government institutions in the second quarter of financial year 25-26. And 3, provide guidance to accounting officers on execution of the budget, particularly paying attention to priority areas that they need to pay attention to when disbursing resources for the services that they deliver. But first, let me start by summarizing the state of the economy so that we know the environment under which we are operating. The economy continues to expand despite the challenging global environment characterized by higher and tighter conditions and geopolitical tensions that have disrupted supply chains in recent times. According to the final GDP estimates by UBOS, the real GDP grew by 6.3% in financial year 24-25, and is up from 6.1% the previous financial year 2023/24. The size of the economy in nominal terms increased to shillings 227.88 trillion in 2024-25, up from 203.71 trillion the previous year, that is 2023-24. The growth was largely driven by a sustained recovery in aggregate demand, supported by government initiatives such as the Parish Development Model. These interventions, together with favorable weather conditions and a stable macroeconomic environment, allowed for that production to be boosted and strengthened private sector activity in the economy. In terms of sector contributions to GDP, the services sector continued to be the biggest contributor to the GDP, with a share of 42.1% last financial year, that is 2024-25, compared to 43%, with a share of 42.1% compared to 43.1% the previous year. This was followed by agriculture sector with a share of 26.1% in 24-25 compared to 24.6% the previous year. The industry sector contributed 24.3% in 2024-25 compared to a contribution of 24.9% the previous year. Looking ahead, therefore, we project that the economy remains well positioned for sustained economic growth, underpinned by ongoing government initiatives, strengthening regional cooperation and global recovery, and a diversified production base that supports resilience and long-term development. The real GDP growth is projected at 7% this financial year, that's 2025-26, and above 7% over the medium term. This outlook on the economic growth is supported by the high frequency indicators of economic growth. The composite index of economic activity, which measures the overall level of economic activity, was recorded at 179.4% in August 2025, an improvement from 179.3% in the previous month. Additionally, the Purchasing Managers Index, which measures the health and activity of the private sector in the economy, also remained above the 50% mark threshold, with a reading of 54 in September 2025, which is an improvement from 53.3 observed in August 2025. Similarly, sentiments about doing business in the Ugandan economy, as reflected by the Business Tendency Index, BTI, have been positive since the start of the financial year. The BTI was recorded at 59.2 in September 2025, compared to 57.8 recorded in August 2025. All sectors of the economy exhibited optimism about business conditions, mainly on account of increased order of volumes that they are supplying, implying improved aggregate demand. Inflation and exchange rate. In the first quarter of this financial year, annual headline inflation averaged 3.8%, supported by prudent monetary policy, a stable exchange rate, and improved domestic food supplies. The outlook remains favorable, with core inflation expected to stay within the 5% policy target, backed by resilient exchange rate conditions, better domestic food supply, and stable commodity prices. However, the risks persist from potential adverse weather conditions, floods, drought in some cases, etc., global supply chain disruptions, and renewed depreciation pressures in the outer months. On a monthly basis, annual headline inflation slightly rose to 4% in September 2025 from 3.8% in August 2025. This was mainly due to a slight increase in food prices, depicted by a rise in annual food crops, prices, and related items, inflation, which jumped from 3% in August to about 7.4% in September. The Uganda shilling, however, continued to gain against the United States dollar in September, recording an average mid-rate of 3,497 Uganda shillings per dollar, down from 3,573 Uganda shillings per United States dollar in August. The strengthening of the shilling is mainly due to increased foreign exchange inflows from offshore investors who have confidence in our instruments and participate strongly in our market, remittances from our brothers and sisters working abroad, and coffee export receipts, which continue to outstrip demand from the corporations or for the imports that they do import, or the remittances they take out for payment of dividends, and so on and so forth. On the external sector, total export earnings in Q4 of last year, that's ending December last year, and your Q4 last year, that's March to June last financial year, amounted to United States dollar 3,475 million. That's 3.4 or about 3.5 billion United States dollars, which is much higher than the United States dollars 2,236.72 million recorded for the same quarter of the previous financial year, implying a growth of 55.4% in terms of the exports receipts. This is partly due to increased earnings from coffee, as I had mentioned earlier, as the country continued to benefit from improved output as well as better international prices of coffee. Similarly, the country's import bill grew by 38.5% from US dollars 2,869.5 million in Q4 of last financial year to United States dollars 3,975.02 billion in the same period of the financial year. This was mainly driven by formal non-oil private sector imports. As a result of the increased import receipts on one hand, and also increased import receipts, the growth in exports compared to imports, Uganda's trade deficit with the rest of the world narrowed by 21.1% to United States dollars 499.53 million in the fourth quarter of last financial year, from 632.74 million in the same quarter of the previous year, or the other financial year. Remittances from the Ugandans in the diaspora continue to improve, as I mentioned earlier. In Q4, quarter 4 of last financial year, they amounted to 401.85 million. This is 19.9% higher than the United States dollar 355.08 million recorded in quarter 4 of financial year 2023-24. US dollars total remittances from Ugandans living and working abroad were US dollars 1,568.91 million for the whole of last financial year, compared to 1,403.11 million in the previous financial year. So there was a big improvement in terms of the total inflows from our friends, brothers, sisters, parents living abroad, remitting money into this economy. Budget release for quarter 2. Let me now turn to the budget release for the second positive. The approved budget for this financial year, as a reminder, is 72.376 trillion, and summarized in the table, which I'll share with you in this press briefing. The breakdown of that approved budget for this financial year broadly is as follows. The wage is about 8.567 trillion, the salaries that we use for paying government workers. In the first quarter, that is July to September, we released 2.264 trillion. This quarter, we are releasing 2.132 trillion. For the half year, therefore, the total releases for wages and salaries is 4.396 trillion. The non-wage recurrent part of the budget, which is helping to buy some items to facilitate government operations, approved budget 16.12 trillion, first quarter 5.1 trillion released, and this quarter we are releasing 3.9 trillion for non-wage recurrent. The government of Uganda development budget, that's the one which finances roads and so on and so forth. The total budget, approved budget for this financial year is 6.9 trillion. In quarter 1, we released 1.464 trillion. And this quarter, we have released 2.389 trillion. The arrears budget was 1.4 trillion this year. We didn't release any arrears in the first quarter because we had to have a verification, a validation of the arrears position by Auditor General, which is still ongoing. But we do know, government to government, national water to electricity, and so on and so forth, that 187.03, government to government institutions, the arrears position is confirmed as 187.03, and that's what we have released in the circular which has gone out. The rest of the arrears out of the 1.4 trillion will be released as soon as the Auditor General finishes the validation exercise, which he is undertaking, which I expect to be pretty soon. External financing, the development budget, we expect to get 11.3 trillion. In first quarter, we released 2.7 trillion. Second quarter, 2.6 trillion. The debt and treasury operations, payment of our debt, we pay all our debts and loans properly in time, including interest payments. The budget is 27.7 trillion this year. In the first quarter, we released 8.5 trillion. And this quarter, we are releasing 7 trillion. It fluctuates because not all debt is constant throughout the year, and not interest payments are constant throughout the year. So that figure goes up and down, but we pay on time as programmed. The local revenue, which local governments collect and also other institutions collect for their use at their source, the total budget for the year is 328.6 trillion. In quarter 1, we released 82.1 because that's what they collected. And quarter 2, well, slightly increased, it is about the same, 82.17. And then you get a total budget as summarized in that table. Out of the 72.38 trillion, therefore, for this financial year, 20.18 trillion was released in first quarter, as shown in the table, and shillings 18.43 trillion has been released in the second quarter, resulting into a cumulative total release of 38.61 trillion for this financial year, which is just about 53.4%. Slightly more than a half of the budget has been released because of some actions of front load in some cases. What are the slight details about expenditure so that you can be able to communicate all these details to the spending agencies? The statutory obligations and institutions were allocated 7.07 trillion for debt and treasury operations. We allocated under this category 2.132 trillion to cater for wages and salaries, as I mentioned briefly, 339 billion for pension and gratuity, Parliamentary Commission 223.64 billion, Judiciary 64.06 billion. That's under statutory obligations. Under support to our drive for the agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, and science technology, which we popularly call ATMs, not your ATMs for withdrawing money. To drive the economy to tenfold, we have released the money as follows. Agro-industrialization, 320 billion for research operations and capital expenditure for the development projects under that portfolio. Under tourism development, the T in the ATMs, we have released 53.65 billion to Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities and Uganda Tourism Board. These funds are largely financing tourism sector development innovations like branding Uganda and marketing the various products to attract more visitors to this country and tourists. Promoting and enforcing hospitality standards, grading hotels, and rating and inspection to ensure the minimum standards that are required internationally for our hotels and where our visitors rest and Ugandans also rest when they travel up country is decent and up to the mark with respect to international standards. Mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas, we have released 16.64 billion under the Petroleum Authority, mainly to provide them with resources that are necessary for operations. Science, technology, and innovation, the S in our ATMs, including ICT and creative industry, we have released 124.25 billion for interventions under science, technology, and innovation, Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, and National Information Technologies Authority, NITA-U of Uganda. Under the enablers, those areas that support the ATMs in driving the economy forward, we have released the money as follows. Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs for your security and stability of the peace in this country is 642.85 billion. Under Uganda Police Force, 161.62 billion. State House, 83.97 billion. Uganda Prison Services, 89.67 billion. Office of the President, 114.13 billion. Internal security operations, 34.59 billion. External security operations, 18.56 billion. Electoral Commission, 52.71 billion. This makes a full release to Electoral Commission approved budget for Electoral Commission roadmap, totaling to date 450 billion. We have been releasing because there are accelerated activities for Electoral Commission to conduct the elections. So the total approved budget for Electoral Commission has been released as at this quarter. Under infrastructure, Ministry of Works and Transport, we have released 1.703 trillion, of which 878.68 billion is Government of Uganda, and 824.998 billion is external financing. The money is we borrow from outside for infrastructure. For the Government of Uganda capital development budget, cumulatively, we have released 82% of the annual budget to fast-track road development projects, You must have seen where it's somehow stalled, but we have now released money to facilitate their work and the contracts. The road maintenance and completion of Entebbe Airport, among others. So that's where this 1.7 trillion, which we have released this quarter, is going to. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, we have released 361.55 billion, of which 125.59 billion is government of Uganda, and 232.95 billion is external to implement the rural electrification projects, finance development of transmission lines, and power generation projects. Under the Kampala Capital City Authority, we have released 145.65 billion, of which 74.92 billion is government of Uganda, and 70.77 billion is external financing from the borrowed money for implementation of development projects within the city, like roads and drainage, among others. Under Ministry of Kampala City and Metropolitan Affairs, we have released 292 billion under the externally financed Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Urban Development. Under the Human Capital Development Program, under Ministry of Health, we have released 471 billion. The National Medical Stores, 205.61 billion. Uganda Cancer Institute and Uganda Heart Institute, 84.85 billion. Referral hospitals, national and regional, 58.79 billion. National Council of Sports, 236.77 billion. Ministry of Education and Sports, 172.21 billion. And public universities, all of them 144.62 billion. With respect to local governments, shillings 390.78 billion has been released. Of this amount, 138.35 billion is for conditional grants that will go from the center, and non-conditional grants, and shillings 252.44 billion for capital development to enable them implement timely implementation of the local government development projects. Domestic areas, as I mentioned earlier, 187 billion for government-to-government domestic areas, that is utilities, water, electricity, and telephones, rent, and contribution to international organizations, has been released. The balance on arrears, as I said, will be released after conclusion of the ongoing validation exercise by Auditor General. Revenue generating votes. The Uganda Revenue Authority, 114.9 billion under Uganda Revenue Authority to facilitate revenue collection. 2, 8.45 billion for Uganda Registration Services Bureau. 3, 61.42 billion has been allocated to national citizenship and immigration control. 3.06 billion to the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board. In conclusion, therefore, I would like to emphasize the following. Lest I forget, there is a release also on top of the other central vote releases. We have released 554 billion for PDM, Parish Development Model, 554 billion, and that one goes from this ministry to the various PDM beneficiaries for their productivity at household level. 554. We shall add in the final adjustment to the central government releases. As I conclude, I would like to emphasize the following 6 or 7 points. 1, the budget for this financial year continues to support implementation of the tenfold growth strategy towards the ATM, achievement of the ATM aspirations and objectives, as well as the enablers for the ATMs to achieve the desired results. As government, therefore, our main objective is to promote technical efficiency by ensuring that all ministries, departments, and agencies and local governments deliver better services to the Ugandans at least cost. Number 2, all accounting officers are instructed to comply with the commitment to pay salaries by the 28th day of every month. We have released the money. There's no reason why they should not release the money, salaries, for those who have worked on the 28th of every month. Pensions, people have retired. There's no reason why you should delay to pay what they earned over the years when they served, because some of them may not reach that age. Gratuity, those who are retiring, that's the only big thing they get as they go away or leave the service. By the 28th, as I said, of every month, out as per the approved salary scales. In order to eliminate the accumulation of arrears, that's point number 3, and penalties as a result of those arrears accumulating, accounting officers are directed further to prioritize payment of service providers on time. Accounting officers should stick to the requirement of not committing government without sufficient budget or a confirmation that budget resources are there. 4, all accounting officers must ensure that all contracts and payments are executed in Uganda shillings, because you find at times some tend to commit government on currencies other than those for which we budgeted for, unless of course there are exceptions which can be cleared on exceptional basis. Number 5, no recruitment should take place without clearance from the Ministry of Public Service after confirming availability of adequate wage from this ministry. We work with Ministry of Public Service like Siamese twins these days. One cannot move without a confirmation from the other. So therefore, there is no way we can allow accounting officers to recruit without that twin confirmation. One, that there is space on the available resources approved for that year, which is confirmed by us for that wage bill. Any recruitment that falls outside that will certainly attract punitive action from us, both of us, public service and ourselves. Finally, I urge accounting officers to convene finance committee meetings, now that the resources have been released to them, to agree on the priorities for the quarter in line with approved budget and the resources available, to inform allocations to the cost centers. We don't want some sections of the same ministry to ring treasurer that the accounting officer says that you have not released the money. No. That's a function of the accounting officer in that ministry to convene the finance committee meetings where they transparently discuss what we have sent in line with this circular and briefing that we are giving you. Because all of them have got money, it's up to them to rationalize the money in line with the releases made and the budgets that have been approved by Parliament. I once again wish to thank the press and civil society for supporting our budget transparency initiative. And I urge you to make use of our website, www.budget.finance.go.ug, where we post more detailed information, including the detailed allocation in the releases of the resources on 0800-229-229 for any for God and my country.
Thank you very much, Acting SST presentation. Allow me at this juncture to, first of all, welcome our partner from the Chief of Social Policy. I've also seen Madam Nalunga from Swatini, where she's also welcome. Thank you.
And I'm presenting the Executive Director, Mr. Prias, in the country on CS Bank duties. I have a statement that I'm going to read verbatim on his behalf, and it goes as follows. The Permanent Secretary, Secretary of the Treasury, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, PTI partners, the government heads of departments, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. PSST, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CS Bank and its members are pleased to be part of this key process in championing transparency and accountability in budget processes. We are proud the Minister of Finance for successfully completing the local government budget consultations, where the budget strategy for the financial year 2026-2027 was presented and discussed with local governments. This gave a platform for MDAs and local governments to discuss measures to improve service delivery, and MDAs a chance to disseminate the grant guidelines for the preparation for the financial year 26-27. PSST will also commend the steps taken by government to eradicate budget gains in Uganda planning and budget processes through the directive that we saw in the first budget called Sachra and the budget strategy for the financial year 26-27. CS Bank had earlier this year brought this to the attention of the Minister of Finance on the failure for certain MDAs plan on their core mandates and obligation, resulting in unnecessary supplementary budget requests. We therefore appreciate the directive that have been issued to build consensus on eradicating budget gains and achieving prudent public finance management. CS Bank would wish to bring the following issues to the attention of this meeting. One, PSST, we have seen a delay in submission and assessment of government development plans under NDP4. As provided under Section 111(2) paragraph 60 of the NDP4 plannings called Sachra, local governments were required to submit their final development plans to NPA by 31st of March 2025. However, as of September 2025, out of the 176 local governments, only 25, representing 14%, have submitted, assessed, and recommended, have been submitted, assessed, and recommended for approval. A total of 75, representing 43%, submitted first drafts, which were reviewed, sent back with comments for submission. 48, representing 7%, are still undergoing first review. 20, representing 11%, have submissions which are undergoing second reviews, and 8%, 5% or 8 local governments have not submitted any draft plans according to the NPA's report during the financial 26-27 local government budget consultations. This means that 86% of local governments are already implementing activities without approved local government development plans and are therefore outside the NDP4 planning framework. This creates a risk of misaligning spending with the current NDP4. We call upon the Minister of Finance to enforce compliance by linking releases to proof of submission and approval of local government development plans, while supporting the National Planning Authority and Minister of Local Government to fast track the review process and ensure that these plans are approved and does not affect the projects being implemented at local government level. PSST, we have also noted delays in local government fiscal planning, which undermine alignment with national development plan and the NDP4. Local governments are required to formulate fiscal development plans, which are aligned to the national fiscal development plan and the NDP4. However, progress, as we saw in the development plan, has also been very slow. Out of the 2,912 expected plans nationwide, only 441, representing 15%, have so far been approved. At a national level, while at the regional level, only two of the 6 are approved. At the municipal level, 17 out of 31, representing 55%, have been approved, and in the cities, only 3 out of 11, representing 27%, have been approved. Districts have approved just 18 out of the 135. Town council 58, and the rest also are performing in that category, on that bracket of around 58%, 10%. So the local government fiscal plans and the national fiscal plans have not been submitted. Now, this gap means that many local governments continue to implement without approved fiscal development plans, which undermines spatial alignment with the national fiscal development plan and the NP4, and increases the risk of uncontrolled development. And this has been seen quite often, where you find projects have been put up, then the next month you find someone is breaking it, maybe to pass a water pipe. We therefore urge Minister of Finance to prioritize financing and enforcing of physical development plans at all local government levels to safeguard orderly development and ensure proper alignment with the national priorities. PSST, again, we have also observed in this spring, fiscal spring, which is evident in the current wage and pension shortfalls. We have noted with concern that even after the financial year 25-26 budget was approved, some accounting officers continue to submit requests for wage, monthly pension, and gratuity shortfalls to Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. And this persistent trend highlights underlying issues of poor budgeting and fiscal discipline, despite government's consistent efforts to incrementally enhance wage bill and address previous resource gaps. There is an urgent need for stricter enforcement of budgetary compliance and improved financial planning at all levels to ensure that salary, pension, and gratuity obligations are met within the approved allocations. And PSST also came out during the local government budget consultations. It's one of the issues that were raised by local governments. When it comes to asset management, we really thank the Office of the Accountant General for the reforms that have been implemented in asset management, including the pivotal change in the integrated financial management systems, fixed assets model, and the rollout of the asset management reporting, which addresses the challenges that the government has faced concerning asset management. However, we note that in the recent Auditor General's report, he pointed out that the asset valuation committees that have the responsibility of valuing own and current assets using the simplified valuation guidelines were not competent to make reliable estimates. As such, the assets have been recognized at a historical cost using available information, which we feel is a challenge at this innovation. In line with the Auditor General's recommendation, we encourage the Accountant General to follow through with the validation and evaluation processes to enhance integrity, transparency, and accountability of the financial statements. Second last, we have also noted delays to approve statutory deductions related to salaries at the local government level. And this was a report by URA also in the local government budget consultations. We have noted that one of the challenges facing local revenue is the departmental heads taking long to approve related salary reductions like pay. Reports from URA show that as of October 2025, some local governments still have pending invoices from July. Consequently, local revenue only performed at 2% in the month of July due to the same problem. And there is need to put up mechanisms to ensure that these statutory reductions are approved on time. And I saw in the releases this quarter we are raising about 82 billion from local revenue, and probably that is one of the reasons why that is still low. Chair, one of the other cross-cutting issues we wanted to talk about is the issue of the ongoing teachers' strike overpay. Yes, we acknowledge we are raising money for wage, but we are aware that there is ongoing industry action for teachers. So there is a risk of raising money at pay teachers when actually we're not going to have teaching taking place. So, Chair, we are concerned that our learners are losing valuable school time because of the ongoing industry action in schools. The issue of salary disparities has been ongoing and is creating major service delivery challenges, especially in the education sector. As we deliberate here, we are glad to hear what convincing message the government will bring to ensure Let us come among teachers and teaching can continue. In conclusion, once more, we are happy to be part of this process as we open the door for the responsible public finance management in the nation. We remain committed to helping to ensure inclusive and prudent public finance management in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And the fact that we also are running a budget which is constricted, you know? So it's really important to make sure that all the resources we have are used prudently and they go where they are supposed to go. Chair, we are part of the CS BAG, and the issues which Pascal has raised are part of our issues. I just want to emphasize the issue of aligning with the NDP4, and we need to remember that NDP3, the issue came out that we didn't perform very well. So the issue of alignment is really very, very important, that all the releases have to align with NDP4 so that we get value for money, so that at the end of the year we know that we are really on track. The issue also of where the resources should go is really important. Chair, the issue of indebtedness is an elephant in the room we can't run away from. And our position really is that we need to think outside the box when we are talking about getting more and more loans, what we term innovative financing. Because in a way, innovative financing is also making us go deeper into debt. Our proposal, Chair, is that we need to look at the resources we have and put more resources into the productive sector. Ensure that we address issues of production and productivity, issues of marketing, because we have been talking about issues of agricultural bonds. It will be difficult to de-risk the agricultural bonds when other parameters like productivity haven't been addressed, issues like pricing, because there is no way people who are in agriculture can be able to get a loan when you don't know the income at the end of that day. I have seen coffee prices going up, going down, maize prices going up, going down. So if we are to get out of the situation we are in when it comes to indebtedness, we have to go to agric industrialization, increase production and productivity, ensure marketing, ensure premium products, so that even if our coffee, we don't produce more coffee, but we add value to that. We brand it, we get a higher income. So when we are thinking about where we to put the money, I think it's important to put the money in agro-industrialization to increase production and productivity and to increase incomes at national level, but also at household level. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Siatini. I now take this prayer to invite activities
interesting comments and certainly add value to the discussions that we continuously have, and also improve the way we do things and also attain allocative efficiency. Let me start from Siatini. The point you raised about the need to increase resources to agro-industrialization is extremely important, because that's largely why under our ATMs, the agro-industrialization stands out very clearly and loud and fast. We are also at the center now, and shortly we shall be inviting all of you, civil society as well as Siatini, and like-minded people, to think through the work plans that these sectors should have, even as they plan for further investments in the sectors, of agro-industrialization, tourism, mining, as well as science technology. We need to walk them through the work plans, and also in those work plans, we need to sequence activities that are necessary for us to finance over the NDP 4 period. And even NPA, according to the law, is supposed to come with a 10-year development plan. So this will be a precursor for the kind of work plan and the investment that must be taking place over the outer 10-year period as we run towards the year 2040. So your point is very clear, and we start usually with agro-industrialization. And as you see from releases and the work plan that we got from the agro-industrialization pillar, and also the programs linked to agro-industrialization, we have certainly paid much more attention to the research and development part of the budget for those institutions. I'm also mindful about the season for productivity, so that we increase the resources as we go towards pre-season, planting season, pre-research season, to get out the seeds, get out the semen, get out the fish of high quality out to the farmers in time for the season to give them better yields. Productivity increases also have got an element of technology. What technology are you introducing in each of these sectors? It cuts across all the sectors: agro-industrialization, tourism, mining, etc. You need the human capital development to equip them with the skills necessary for the sectors to increase productivity. You saw from the world, the growth forum that we had, productivity still remains very low across sectors. Total factor productivity is very low. So in our work plan, as I told you, we shall invite you. We don't have monopoly of ideas. Shortly, to discuss what productivity issues must we take into account to the various pillars of our tenfold growth, as well as enablers, so that we have the skill of human beings that are necessary to drive the changes in productivity, so that we go to a higher indifference curve in terms of productivity and also the demand curve. So I agree with you. It's very important. We should think about that. And also continuously, when we're releasing money, we target what is it that gives us a positive change in terms of increases in output. We shall not stop at the discussion at this point of debt. Yes, we know the debt is going up, and so is the economy. The debt is going up, and so is the growth of the economy. But I think the structure of that economy is not giving us enough taxes so that we can finance most of the activities. So what we need to do is to think about areas that will bring about that portion of the economy which is contributing to growth, but not contributing to the growth of revenue. Is it a big leakage in revenue, which is a problem? Maybe yes, it could be part of it. Or is it a small addition for productivity of the URA by way of maybe the technologies that are necessary for us to integrate systems and be able to assess quickly, collect quickly, and get the money real time? Or is it an issue of expansion, or all the above? I think for me, it's all the above. We need to expand the scope of integration of systems with URA so that we know in one square, Naluga has got these assets here using the TIN number. He has got electricity, he has got 10 bills of electricity in different places, but it's not declared. For us, we declare to our authorities, but for you, we are private sector. The 9 houses declare 1, then 10 are not. But when we trace through the water meters, through electricity, through your team, we integrate that system, then we know that it seems that Madame Naluga has got much more than the one that she has. Then using that system, we should be able to derive the taxable base around that. Second, there's a large part of the economy which is growing, but it's not captured in the in our tax system, and that's the informal sector. It's quite large, but you can't blame the people for being informal. I think what we are doing now is to find incentives. In this year's budget, you saw the incentive for a tax exemption for business starters. I think we finally settled, Parliament settled for 3 years when they don't pay income tax. These are the kind of incentives that you need to look at year in, year out. We started this year with that incentive. That will incentivize people to come to start doing business, register them, but also keep books of account. But for the time being, even if you make profits, we are not going to tax you for 3 years. That's the start. So that will make them come to the tax bracket. Then by the time we come in with respect to income tax or something like that, at least you have a track record of this informal activity, which has been out of the economy all along, but now is coming on board. So incentives to build up confidence of the public or private sector in the tax system are very, very important at the initial stages of bringing in the informal sector into formality. That's a very, very important point that we need to pursue, and we should need to look at other incentives that we must put in place for us to have that growth come on board. Then with respect to the leakages that exist, I think we need to get credible information on which then the administrators are put to task to plug the loopholes. We did very well with IFRIS. We did very well with the digital stamps. We did very well with the integration of this URA with the supermarkets and so on and so forth. That is the way to go. Integration of systems and also IT applications to the various sources of where we collect money. Now I go to the supermarket, I'm happy every time I go to the supermarket. Occasionally, the machine shouts, makes noise. I get out of the supermarket, I look at how much has gone to URA because I want to see how much I've contributed to URA from that consumption. The receipt is there. And that money is real time in the URA bank account as reported. So the more we integrate things like the outlets of shopping, of course we can't go to the markets where I buy matoke and also those kilos of meat. You know, Ugandans like buying things by sight. I want that matoke, then cut this part of meat. That one is, we shall reach there also later on. But for the time being, those are the kind of integrations of systems that are necessary for us to achieve that. I'm sorry I've taken long on that because it's the one which gives us a solution to the debt problem. You can't run away from a debt problem quickly. Even when we get oil revenues, I think still you need to get revenue to finance the larger part of your expenditures, and then you run away from debt. But for the time being, so long as there's that deficit, I think for the time being, as we want to go tenfold, we may have to grow the debt, but cautiously on those areas that add value to the economy and expand the revenue base for the economy, but also enable the economy to grow, because the growth of the economy is the first starting point. We shall then later on go to the other aspects about savings culture and so on and so forth. But for now, let me leave it at that. I like the comments from, I think they are both supportive of the policy direction that we took, but we take note of the industrial action by our friends, the teachers, and I'm very confident that the discussions that are going on in government together with them are going to yield better fruits. And I think the conclusion is going to be very, very okay. And shortly, that activity may come to an end, and then we meet part of our bargain next financial year going forward, because there's a commitment by government on that activity. Asset management, I think, is work in progress. We shall be able to handle that very well. Statutory deductions by local governments, I think, between us, what I recommend is that let's start having a black book. I know some politicians used to have a black book which didn't work, but I think on our side, we need those frequently notorious either local government or institutions that are not remitting statutory deductions. And we shall get the data from Uganda Revenue Authority. And we find, first of all, try to assist them to find out why is it that you are collecting and not remitting these taxes. And your local government, a government institution, is certainly not very good. But then we shall walk you through. In case you are finding a problem of capacity, we should be able to send some people from the center, which the Constitution allows to help you file. But if we see a persistent trend in the course of a financial year, we have no reason to maintain you as accounting officer the next financial year. That's a maximum punishment you should be able to give those people. There's no way you can fail to remit the tax liability. As I said, we need to walk them, handhold them for a start. 1 month, 2 months, but if you see that the thing is continuing, then I think we shall have to crack the whip on you, even before the financial year ends, certainly. Wage shortfalls, I agree with you. There should be no wage shortfalls. Auditor General finished. the audit of the payroll. They finished the audit of the pension and gratuity payroll. We now have the basic data. We now know how many Ugandans are employed in public sector. The Ministry of Public Service has it. I gave you the analogy of Siamese twins between us and Ministry of Public Service. We can no longer entertain. I saw a heap which came to this ministry. We had nothing to do but just send it wholesome to Ministry of Public Service, because I think the tendency was that they used to think that we would be sympathetic to these so-called wage shortfalls. We are allergic to it now. So we send to the first clearing house, which is the Ministry of Public Service. Examine these people who are saying there are wage shortfalls. How did they come? Audit done by Auditor General was just barely, how many months ago? Just about 4 months or 6 months ago. Now you come with a wage bill? Possibly no. What happened? Why did you hide information from Auditor General in the first instance? If you recruited, who authorized you to recruit? And now want public service also to have a serial number of the authorization for recruitment and the number of people serialized, so that we know out of serial number this so and so was authorized to recruit because there was a wage bill. Who is this? Which serial number did you use to recruit? Then it comes to us, where is the money for recruitment? Did we authorize you to use that money for that? Otherwise, we cannot continue like this. So there is a heap which came. We have sent it to public service, and we are very sure a solution will be found. Either they recruited illegally, then they face the consequences of who authorized them to recruit. If they're not authorized, then the consequences are very clear, that you are committing government outside the financial regulations. Approval of fiscal plans, I think we're at one on that. There is now an amendment to the fiscal planning law. National Planning Authority takes the lead in what? Fiscal planning overall. But also, it will be necessary for us to clean up, the 10-fold strategy. We need to clean up in terms of regulation, enforcement of regulation by the various institutions, enforcement of implementation of planning arrangements, right from our cities, municipalities, trading centers, and even upcountry. Land use planning and so on and so forth is something that we need to pick up as a work in progress as we plan for the outer years, as well as implementation of our 10-fold growth strategy. Those are the comments I picked from my two colleagues, and I think it makes a good basis for us to proceed and commit to work together on the remaining parts of work that must do. Thank you very much.
To me, why is wage also going down? Where is the other group of people that you paid in the
Security.
Security. Have they retired or they are now unemployed? Help us understand that. Sir, you said you prioritize the questions. PDM, sir, you said that you've released 550 something, 54. So this is for how many beneficiaries? And how much last not released? This time you are releasing 554. For which group of people? Under PDM.
Okay, NPS.
New Vision. She's a very good lady. Normally asks me very tough questions. Yes, the PDM, as you know, this is the fourth year now of PDM releases, and we release 1 trillion every year to PDM beneficiaries. And the PDM beneficiaries are already identified. They are in parishes, as what it says, Parish Development Model. But in the parishes, they are households. So we release resources on the basis of the program that we receive from the parishes and confirmed as the beneficiaries for the next cycle. So this is the fourth year of releases. This is the first part for this financial year. The second part will probably be released in the third or fourth quarter. Third or fourth quarter. But certainly by the end of the financial year, our aim is to release 1 trillion to the Parish Development Fund, Revolving Fund operation. So this is the first part of Parish Development Model for this year. And going to the beneficiaries in the parishes as identified under the program for PDM. The list is quite huge, and I think we now have a very good application, which I think the Accountant General, working together with ISO and all those teams, have got very clear information which goes through the WND application. We now have the database of the beneficiaries and what they said they are going to implement or use the money for. And they take them with photographs, they go and visit them, they go to the location, you drop a pin and you go to find out who this person is and linked to the identity card, the NIN. So we have robust systems for now identification of where this money is reaching and for what purpose and which village and which location. We have that detail. So I'll ask the Accountant General if he so wish later on to give the information to the new vision. Yeah, better piece to disseminate such information. The reduction of the total allocation and also reduction of, was it interest payment or something like that? Wage. There are people we paid earlier and we realized they are ghosts and therefore they are falling out of the payroll. Not necessarily. I think there was an issue of, in the first quarter, we had to front load quite a number of resources for, first of all, the overall budget. We had to front load for some election-related issues. We also had to front load some resources under the wage category for the activity that was necessary for under, again, the electoral commission or something like that. And we, therefore, had to go back to the normal programming. And that's why you see slight loss. But at the end of the financial year, we shall not go beyond the budget. That's what the control point is the end of the financial year. In the course of the financial year, there could be front loads, and then once you front load, you don't continuously front load for the operations going forward. You use the resources that we have given you in the first quarter to now deal with activity which you don't have to repeat in the course of the financial year. NBS, teachers strike. I think the government is severally that the enhancement of civil servants and even local government people will take place next financial year onwards. That statement has been made, and it's a very clear statement. Of course, we regret what's happening for the learners, but the fact is the government commitment will start implementation next financial year, and our job now is to look for money for that implementation beginning next financial year. Public service is running the numbers, and those are the numbers that will inform the quantum as we conclude the planning and budgeting. We have started the planning and budgeting for next financial year. The budget framework paper circular has already gone, and accounting officers have been guided on this, and also the Ministry of Public Service has been guided with respect to that government commitment for enhancement next financial year. But we need the quantum, the numbers of categories of people across the board, including but not limited to teachers, as well as local government, as well as some center ministry operations. So we have to look for the money. That's the position I have in this ministry. And we are starting the cranking the numbers and also the policy actions that will give us money to start this next financial year. But as I said, we shall be informed by the numbers out of the public service calculation and computation. The global interest rates have been going up, and there are a lot of uncertainties with respect to the global environment, tariff restrictions, non-tariff restrictions, and so on and so forth, and also the need for those institutions to recoup their monies. We have told you severally, in line with our debt sustainability strategy, we shall continue to borrow to finance the fiscal deficit. The borrowing preferably should be concessional in all respects. We can only go to commercial for activities that are very critical for our tenfold growth strategy, largely on infrastructure programs, which require large outlays, the SGR, the meter gauge, the oil and gas infrastructure, larger irrigation schemes to increase productivity per acre in those areas where there are commercial farms, roads, and so on and so forth. Those areas which have got a higher internal rate of return and economic rate of return are the ones we shall continue to borrow consistent with our tenfold growth strategy under the ATMs and the enablers. We also know that when we do that, their contribution to economic growth is seen in the numbers. And we have proved that over a period of time that our investment, for example, if we are not invested in Isimba and Karuma 10 years ago by borrowing that $2.3 billion, it was a lot of money 10 years ago. But now we are seeing the dividends out of that investment. Those are the kind of investments we shall continue to borrow for. Now we need to evacuate power to areas where industrial parks, which are also going to borrow for, in order to power the industrial activity that we want in this economy, to process our products to high-end value for both exports and domestic consumption. Those are the areas we shall borrow for on commercial terms, if we cannot get it on good terms. My friend from Siatini mentioned there should be some innovative ways of financing. We're looking at avenues such as Sukuk bonds. We are now in advanced stages of negotiating someone with expertise in arranging such financing. We're also thinking of now good enough Islamic banking has entered this economy as well. So that will be another arm of financing that we think will be near or close to commercial, the concessional terms, to power some of the investments in those areas where the Islamic law allows us to invest in. So yes, we're cautious and we always move in line with our debt strategy, and as well as the ATMs, areas of ATMs that we need to finance each year. And the work plans that we are going to finalize certainly will inform further those particular specifics that we must do this year, next year, the other year, and so on and so forth. But the ultimate aim is that, as much as possible, the size of GDP must double every 5 years. So today is what? Today is $60,000. 65 billion US dollars. The size of the economy is $67 billion. After 5 years, we think it can be 140 something. And we shall invest in order to achieve that. After that, NDP 5 should give us double what is there at the end of NDP 4, which is 300 and something. NDP 6, which takes us to 2040, should be able to give us a GDP of about 600 or above, certainly 500, which we are aiming. So that's our planning, thinking, and we shall look at those areas that will deliver us on that one. But we know global pressure is there. But I think this economy has proved, and their planners have proved that I think we have withstood quite a number of pressures. There was the COVID pressure, which disrupted the supply chains. I think we came out of that very fast. There was a financial crisis. We came out of that. There is this crisis of uncertainty in terms of markets and whatever. I think let's continue producing agro-processed things, because human beings must eat, both in this country and outside this country, and eat organic. So why don't we invest there and continue to export? And if you look at our export mix now, the diversification is taking place. There's high-value items now exported, and I think I did mention the items that we're exporting that are giving us more export earnings, which is making our shilling also way down on the what? On the US dollar. We're earning, and we're earning high-value added items. We're exporting from roofings, we're exporting food crops, and we're exporting beef, we're exporting milk. All these are a result of agro-processing and a conscientious planning in terms of mitigating the adverse effects of international global environment. I think let me leave it at that for now. I don't, unless the ITB has what.
What causes the fluctuation in wage is that we front load wage for missions abroad. Actually, we only release twice in a year to guard against what we call loss of poundage, so that our people who are working in our missions abroad can guard against loss of fluctuations in that currency or poundage, as we call it. So that's why we don't release the same wage for every quarter. For missions abroad, we front load into 2 quarters.
Kalira owa Ministry y'ebyenfuna amaze okutuwa sente ze bawadde ebitongole bya gavumenti ebyenjawulo mu kitundu ekyokubiri eky'omwaka gw'ebyenfuna guno. Embalirira y'eggwanga ey'omwaka guno ogwa 2025 ne 2026 eyasomebwa Minisita ow'ebyenfuna omwezi ogw'omukaaga e Kololo yali eweza ssente za Uganda obutabalika 72 n'obuwumbi 3. Eno embalirira ya ssente eweebwa ebitongole ebyenjawulo ebya gavumenti mu bitundu 4 buli myezi 3 egy'omwaka ogw'ensimbi. Mu kitundu ekisooka oba omuwandiisi kyayise quarter 1 ekyatandika mu mwezi ogw'omusanvu ekyagenda ddala mpaka mu mwezi ogw'omwenda obutabalika 2 n'obuwumbi 182 bwaweebwa ebitongole ebyenjawulo ebya gavumenti. Mu kitundu ekyokubiri kino kye tutandise mu mwezi ogw'ekkumi obutabalika 18 n'obuwumbi 431 buweereddwa ebitongole ebya gavumenti ebyenjawulo. Bw'ogattamu Ministry ey'ebyenfuna yakawa ebitundu 53 n'obutundutundu 4 eby'embalirira eyayisibwa eby'omwaka guno 2025 mpaka 2026. Ebikulu bye basomye oba omuwandiisi byasomye mu mbalirira eno: Parish Development Model eweebweddwa obuwumbi 5 kuba sizoni y'okusimba etandise, ebitundu bingi bitandise okufuna enkuba. Kati obuwumbi 5 buweereddwa Parish Development Model. Kireeta ssente eziweereddwa Parish Development Model ku butundutundu 5. Ebyokulonda biweereddwa ssente zaabyo zonna nga bwe zaateekebwateekebwa mu mbalirira y'omwaka guno okusobola okuteekateeka okulonda mu budde. Emisaala gy'abakozi giweereddwa obutabalika 2 n'obuwumbi 132. Ekyo kireeta ssente z'emisaala ez'abakozi omwaka guno ku butundu 5 ku 100. Ebyobulimi biweereddwa obuwumbi 320 okusobola okuteekateeka sizoni engeri gyetandise. Ebyenguudo n'entambula ebirala obutabalika 1,000 n'obuwumbi 700. Kino kitegeeza nti ebyenguudo n'entambula oba ebiri wansi wa Ministry ya Works biweereddwa obutundu 82 ku bajeti y'omwaka gwonna ogw'ebyenfuna gye tulimu. Ebirala ebiweereddwa ssente zaabyo zonna ezaateekebwateekebwa omwaka guno mulimu ebyokusoma, ebyobulamu, gavumenti ez'owansi oba local governments, ebyemizannyo n'ebirala. Omuwandiisi w'enkalakkalira akkaatiriza bino ebintu wammanga nti embalirira y'omwaka guno eyongera okuvujjirira ssente enteekateeka ya gavumenti okukubisaamu enkula y'ebyenfuna y'eggwanga emirundi 10 okuva ku buwumbi bwa $6 bwe tuli kati okutuuka ku buwumbi bwa $5 nga tetunnatuuka mu mwaka gwa 2024. Amaliriza ng'alagira abakulembeze b'ebitongole ebirala okufuba okulaba nga basasula emisaala gy'abakozi bonna mu budde. Ebyo bye bimu bye tusobola okuwumbawumba mu communication eweereddwa muwandiisi w'enkalakkalira. Kakanyabo ku ssente ezayisibwa Paalamenti obutabalika 72 n'obuwumbi 3 obutundu 53 bumaze okuweebwa ebitongole bya gavumenti ebyenjawulo. Oba tusobola okugamba nti okuwerera ddala obuwumbi obutabalika 38 n'obuwumbi 600 bumaze okuweebwa ebitongole bya gavumenti ebyenjawulo ku butabalika 72 n'obuwumbi 3 obwayisibwa minisita wa finance. Ministry of Works eweereddwa obutabalika 1,000 n'obuwumbi 700. Ekyo kireeta ssente za Ministry of Works eziweereddwa omwaka guno ku bitundu 82. Kitegeeza nti ministry eno eweereddwa ssente zonna ezeetaagisa okukola enguudo nga bwe kyateekebwateekebwa omwaka guno. Enguudo zirimu ebitundu bingi, mulimu national roads oba enguudo za Ministry ya Works ezigatta districts ez'enjawulo, mulimu n'enguudo eziri ku level ya districts ezigatta ebitundu ebyenjawulo mu district munda. Ssente zino ebitundu 82 ezaateekebwateekebwa omwaka mulamba ziweereddwa Ministry ya Works and Transport. Nze Henry Sebukeera, nze advisor wa budget mu ministry ey'ebyenfuna.